So how many of you guys love pranking each other? Anybody? I definitely grew up in a family where we were constantly doing jokes and pranking each other, but my dad was one of those people that you had to watch out for because he would always one up you, right? He would always get you back so good. In fact, I remember one situation where my brother poured water on my dad's head while he was in the shower, and he got him so good, but my dad got a hose and sat out in front of his door like this, waiting for my brother to come out so that he could hose him down, right? And I remember my brother pleading, please, Dad, don't do it. Don't do it. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, right? I mean, my dad was good. He was going to get him back. It was big time payback. And my husband said that I am the same way, that he said my nickname should be 10 times Tara, because if he pranks me in some way, he knows I'm going to get him back so good, right? Now, all of this is fun and it's enjoyable, and pranks can be fun, and everyone can have a good time. But the reality is with those kinds of pranks, right? When we one up each other, we're sort of getting each other back, right? It's called payback, right? And the thing about payback is payback can also be really ugly. Think about that. When someone hurts you in your life, you want to often pay them back for hurting you. If they've said something to you or embarrassed you or stole something from you, you want to pay them back. We do this when we're little kids on the playground, right? Someone throws sand at you, and what do? You turn around, throw sand back at them. Now, some of us, if we really were honest, if we gathered here in a room and if we said, everyone raise your hand, some of us would probably not want to admit that we do payback. But think about that. Some of us do public payback in front of everyone. Like, you're going to hurt me, I'm going to hurt you. I'm going to call you out and say this to you and do this in front of everyone. Some of us are a little bit more of a passive payback, right? We might say something that could be interpreted as being rude or mean, but it could also be interpreted as being just, I don't know what that means, right? Or maybe we do the passive, like eye roll at them when they speak, or we just ignore them. Some of us, it's more of an imaginary payback. That's a little bit more of my style. I'm very good at this, where I may not do payback, but in my mind, I have this really good argument that I win. And I totally, in my mind, chew you out, and I tell it like it is, and I pay you back for all the wrong that you did, right? You don't actually do it, but you allow your thoughts to obsess. Some of us, we just enjoy when that person who hurts us fails, whether they trip and fall in front of everyone, or we see that they totally messed up on something. We're like, payback. They totally got what they deserve, right? Well, tonight we're going to be looking at payback because all of us wrestle with it. And we've been looking at this series where Joseph has gone through this life and all of these challenging situations, and we've used his life as a sort of discussion of what do you do when you don't know what to do. And tonight, I want us to wrestle with that idea of payback. What do you do when you're stuck in the situation and someone hurts you? Do you pay back? What do you do? Now, Joseph, I want you to think about all the things that have happened, because now we're kind of going to wrap up his story tonight as we wrap up youth group before we head into the summer. And Joseph, remember his life. He was sold into slavery by his brothers because they were jealous of him being the favorite son. And then Joseph gets sent to Egypt as a slave, where he's falsely accused by Potiphar's wife of raping her because she was jealous because he wouldn't sleep with her. So she falsely accuses him of rape. He gets sent to jail. He's in jail for years. Now think about how finally when he gets out of jail, and he gets out of jail because God uses his ability to interpret dreams, right? God helps him to interpret dreams. He interprets that crazy dream from Pharaoh. Do you guys remember that? It's like that weird dream where there's like 7 fat cows, 7 skinny cows, and 7 skinny heads of grain, and 7 fat heads of grain, right? And everyone was confused. What does this all mean? And God helps Joseph to tell the Pharaoh, it actually means that there's going to be 7 years where there's plenty of food. 7 years, there's going to be an abundance of food, followed by 7 years where there's no food. No crops will grow. There's going to be a famine in the land where people are going to die from starvation. And so the Pharaoh actually appoints Joseph to be his second in command so that he can go and help them to prepare for this famine by collecting all the food into storehouses, right? The Pharaoh saw something in Joseph that he was blessed by God, appoints him to this high role in Egypt. And that's exactly what happens. There was plenty of food, and Joseph, as this high official in Egypt, creates storehouses, gathers all the food, there's plenty. And then the famine hits. And this is where the plot begins to twist and turn. Joseph's own family is also hit by the famine. And so they come to Egypt seeking help, seeking food. not realizing the one they're seeking help from is the very person that they had sold into slavery. So if you want to, I encourage you guys, grab a Bible, grab a phone, check out an app that you might have. But what's interesting is I encourage you to read the story on your own, because there's this back and forth dialogue with Joseph and his brothers and his family in Genesis chapters 42 through 50. So it reads like a movie. It's so intense. It's really, really good, you guys. There's all these like little story bits and things, but we're going to focus on this part. And so we're going to jump in at Genesis and see this interaction with Joseph and his brothers when they finally come seeking help from the man. They have no idea it's Joseph at all. So let's go ahead and read it. Then Joseph could no longer control himself before all his attendants, and he cried out, "Have everyone leave my presence." So there was no one with Joseph when he made himself known to his brothers, and he wept so loudly that the Egyptians heard him, and Pharaoh's household heard about it. Joseph said to his brothers, "I am Joseph. Is my father still living?" But his brothers, they were not able to answer him because they were terrified at his presence. I think this is an intense moment for Joseph. This is definitely a what should you do moment, right? Should he pursue payback for all the wrongdoing that his brothers enacted on him? I mean, they sold him into slavery. They're the reason why he was there and he went through all of this hardship, right? What should he do? And the brothers, they know it. They're terrified. He's telling them to come close to him. And they're like, no, they're terrified. Their mind is probably blown. Like, we sold you into slavery and now you are the reason we're here, hoping that and pleading that you will help us not to starve. And he could have them killed. He could have them sent to jail. He could have them leave and not have any of the food, knowing their whole family will die of starvation, right? He is in this what do you do moment. He's been hurt and wounded, and he has the right in his mind, right, to desire justice for the things that they've done to him. But look at how he responds. He says, "I am your brother Joseph, the one you sold into Egypt. And now do not be distressed and do not be angry with yourselves for selling me here, because it was to save lives that God sent me ahead of you. For 2 years now, there has been famine in the land, and for the next 5 years, there will be no plowing and reaping. But God sent me ahead of you to preserve for you a remnant on earth and to save your lives by a great deliverance." There is almost like no reason why Joseph would be able to respond the way he did. There's no reason except for having God, except that somehow between the time he was sold into slavery and the time where he met his brothers, he was able to somehow do the hard work of giving his hurt to God and allowing God to be central, not his pain, not his hurt, not his need for justice. He went to his brothers, and what I think is so interesting is he doesn't say everything's okay. He doesn't allow his brothers to say what you did is fine. It's okay that you did this to me. No, he points out how you hurt me. You sold me into slavery. He points out his own hurt and what they did. But instead of making it the focus, he allows God to be the focus in this. Do you see what he did? What they had intended for evil, God used for good. Just like we talked about last week, that there was a purpose to his pain. God didn't make all this happen, right? But God used it to actually save their lives and the lives of all of those people in Egypt and the surrounding areas. I think it's interesting because he was acknowledging their wrong. He was acknowledging their hurt, but without creating more hurt. How would he have done that? Payback. If he would have paid them back, he would have just created more hurt and more hurt and more hurt. And he stopped the cycle of hurt. And what's interesting is as you read through this story, Joseph invites his brothers and his family to come and live with him in Egypt, knowing the famine's going to continue. So he has them move with them and to be with them. So that really it's to show forgiveness. But here's what's interesting. It's not just forgiveness for his brothers, right? He's telling them, don't be afraid. God used this. Let's make God the center of this. But it really is freedom for him. It's releasing the pain and the hurt and the need for justice, the need for payback. It's freedom for him that he's not being held and controlled by that need for justice. In fact, As his family moves back, it says that this is what he does with his brothers. It says, and he kissed all his brothers and he wept over them. Afterwards, his brothers talked with him. Now, there's really only one thing better than payback. There's only one thing better: reconciliation. What God is able to do through us, through reconciliation, is amazing. God can do the impossible in a relationship, bring peace when there has really only been hurt. He can actually do that. He can reconcile the hurt that we have with other people. We don't always have to pursue payback. And that is the bottom line tonight, is when it comes to other people hurting us, we have the opportunity to choose to do something different. So when you don't know what to do, we can pursue peace instead of payback. That is the opportunity. And that's exactly what Joseph did, is he pursued peace. He pursued reconciliation with his family. In some ways, it was like he was fighting for their family, fighting for the relationship. And he only was able to do that with God. But I think it's so valuable to see that God became the center instead of his pain, instead of his hurt. And I think the same thing is true for us, is that when we're in tricky situations that are complicated, it's not always easy. We can turn to God and ask him to help us to reconcile, to help us to pursue peace when we want payback, right? Now, I think that's why our small groups are so important, because sometimes we are in situations that feel more complicated and we don't know what to do. And we may struggle to know, what is this relationship worth reconciling? Because let's be honest, you guys, there are some situations that are abusive, that are toxic, that are not good. And I think when you have a small group of friends, a small group of peers, having a mentor like our small group leaders who maybe can give you wisdom, can help you to have a bigger picture, to encourage you to kind of navigate, okay, is this a situation that maybe you need to get out of? Maybe you don't have to pay back, but maybe peacefully needing to walk away. Or are there situations where it's just going to take a while and you need to constantly seek God and ask him for peace, ask him to reconcile, to restore your relationship. So being in your small groups are really important. And that's why I really want to encourage all of you guys over the summer, stay connected, get each other's emails and cell phone numbers so that you guys can stay connected, your home phone numbers, whatever it needs to be, so you guys can stay connected through the summer. So when something happens, reach out to your small group leader, reach out to the other people in your group so that you guys can encourage each other, pray with each other, because your group, all of us, we can be a community that can help each other to even pursue peace instead of payback when we're in really challenging situations, to pursue God instead of shutting things out, to find ways to deal with our hurt and our pain, to help us, to kind of give us insight. And so I just want to leave you guys with that, encouraging you guys, stay connected. Find ways to stay connected. Even though this is the end of our Thursday night youth group, we're going to still try to do events over the summer. We're going to still try to stay connected in other ways. And so I just want to encourage you, our relationships don't have to end just because our Thursday night Zooms are ending for this season, okay? So I just want to encourage you, stay connected, reach out, message us if you need help, if you are going through anything. We want to still be here with you. We're not done. We're just taking a break from our Zooms, all right? So let me pray for you as you guys head up into small group. God, I thank you, God, that how much you love us. You really are the ultimate example of forgiveness, of creating peace and reconciliation. You yourself, you died on the cross before any of us could even ask for forgiveness. You did that for us, and you don't ask us to pay you back for that. You simply want us to follow you and love you and to know you so that we can experience your forgiveness and your peace. And so tonight, God, I pray that you would help all of us for that to just wash over us, and that, God, that you would help us to turn to you, to seek peace, to help when we're feeling hurt and we're wanting payback and we need help to forgive and we need help with reconciliation. God, would you help do the impossible in the relationships we're struggling with? Would you bring reconciliation and peace where we're feeling hurt and we feel like there's no way this could get better, God? Help us, God, and help us to have good conversation and to have fun together because we love each other and we want to have fun. We want to spend time with together and enjoy each other's company. So help us tonight in our conversations. Help us, guide us, and direct us, God. In your name, amen.